Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Today, we're discussing the Audemars Piguet CODE 11.59 Flyback Chronograph. This features some of the elements introduced in the second year of the series that enriched the aesthetic of the watch. That said, it did not change its physical footprint from its 2019 debut. The watch in rose gold measures 41 millimeters in diameter. It is 12.7 millimeters thick. It is 50 millimeters from lug-to-lug tip, and it has a broad and modern 22 millimeter spacing between the lugs. On my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, it fits quite nicely. That said, we're nearing the edge of what's possible. The CODE 11.59 replaced the old Jules Audemars dress watches, but as a dress watch, this is definitely on the large side, and I'd recommend it for a wrist no smaller than 15 centimeters circumference, then only if your wrist is more oval-topped than round. Taking a quick look, you can see, although it is very sheer of flank, it isn't as thick as you might expect, and it will slip underneath the cuff. It is just very broad across the wrist. This watch features a unique Audemars Piguet strap that includes a combination of textile and then rubber on the underside. So this is a very sporty take on the strap-clad Audemars Piguet dress watch. I would recommend this for folks who like to wear their watches in hot weather, Miami, LA, the Mediterranean climate. This looks great. It also has a wonderful rusticated contrast, with the case being highly refined and then the look of the woven textile strap a little bit more raw and utilitarian. It is in dark blue, and you can see this is a brand new Audemars Piguet factory strap. It has rubber on the underside so that coarse textile won't aggress against your wrist, and the watch includes a buckle that was designed for the CODE 11.59. It features a combination of polish and satin, and if you look carefully, you can see that the strap is fixed to the buckle using a polished hexagonal screw. You will see the same is used to attach the strap to the case, and those hexagonal screws are of course a reference to the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, which is the patron saint of all Audemars Piguet design. So that is a little reference to the Royal Oak. You can see another one too. Here is the rounded octagonal bezel of the oak, and if you look at the mid case, between the case back and the bezel, you could see it too is a faceted, rounded octagon. So there's a lot of design parallelism here between the best-known Audemars Piguet and Audemars Piguet's newest dress watch. The case is remarkably intricate, and it's easily lost if you're just looking at photos like this on the internet. The most interesting thing about the watch when it debuted in 2009 was this case design and the shape of the crystal. You can see that the mid-case is somewhat recessed from the bezel and the case back. It includes both satin and then at its edges polish, but you can see that that polish thins out at the ends of the cases and it swells at the mid-case. We have these evacuated open prismatic lugs, and if you look carefully, you can see that there's micro beveling on their outer faces, but also on their inner faces. That's outstanding. The fact that we do have screws and bars fixing strap to case and strap to buckle means we've got a lot of security, almost like a sports watch. The bezel is super slender, and you can see it has satin on its outer face and then a halo-like strip of polished gold around its edge. You can also see there's a little bit of a dip to the crystal when you view from this angle. It has a sort of dihedral pattern, and you can see how that distorts the image of the dial. From different angles, you get dramatic effects from this crystal, and all of this stems from the fact that it isn't a simple cambered or flat crystal. The camber is there, yes, but it is definitely not flat, and the camber is unconventional in ways that I've rarely seen on any watch. We have a crown that includes a sharp knurling, a combination of polish and satin, and we have the same with a little polished bevel around the edge of the rectangular chronograph pushers. Now, this is a flyback chronograph, so you can reset and restart it without first stopping it. That's one of the features of the new 4401 movement that debuted on these watches. The watch features one of the major upgrades from 2020, which is a gradient lacquer dial. When the watch debuted in 2019, the case was great, the movement was great, the crystal was great, but the watch had these kind of ugly, flat-looking, cheap-looking monotone dials, and that was kind of sad because the dials, upon close examination, were actually really well detailed and expensively made. Well, by changing the color to a gradient, light at the center and dark at the edge, Audemars Piguet dramatically upgraded the perceived value of the watch, and now the watch looks like its price. We have a tachymeter scale outboard that sits proud of the dial like a flange, and that can be used for gauging the speed of an object over a kilometer, such as a racing car or a racing airplane. We have a lacquered base that's light at center, dark at the edge, and we have these applique rose gold hour indices, rose gold hands, rose gold Audemars Piguet logo, and Arabic numeral 12. We also have little polished chapterings. The chronograph registers for the minutes and the hours are larger than the constant seconds. And we have a lovely little lollipop counterweighted Lancet-style seconds hand. Now, if you look carefully, you can also see that there's a matte finish to these sub-registers, so they contrast with the dial itself. Take a good look. This is one of the more subtle changes that occurred in the jump from 2019 to 2020. First-year Code 1159s feature this weird, jarring, mismatched font on the date disc. For 2020, the date disc also changed, and now the font on the, here, I use the 12 because it gives me a 2, but the font on the date disc now matches the sub-registers, matches the tachymeter, and matches the applique. That is the same 2, and every numeral that you see on the date disc matches its counterpart on the rest of the watch, and that's easily lost in the transition. A lot of people know about the dials, they don't know about the date disc. Now, the watch does have a hacking or stop seconds function. Let's just turn through the date change danger zone in case we're, yep, there we were. You can see that 3 matches the 3 elsewhere on the dial. We also have a quick set, and that's what I wanted to demonstrate. You don't want to change using a quick set close to midnight, so I always roll through. I particularly like the font they use for the 8. It's almost like an hourglass. Flipping the watch over, you can see that the movement is all new. Now, it's a combination of mechanical and hand finish. The most obviously hand finished part is the rotor, which is black polished on its outer rim. It has mirrored beveling on its outer face, but it also has a lot of interior beveling. It's skeletonized and then hand beveled, which is how you get those super sharp creases where bevels meet. It's satinated across its top, and then the AP logo itself is black polished. So that's the most handsomely hand finished part of the movement. We do have Côte de Genève. We do have machine applied bevels on many surfaces. We have black polished screw heads. The chronograph components in steel are satinated across their tops, and we do have engine turning on the base plate. Technically speaking, this is a big update from the previous Audemars Piguet chronograph calibers. AP used the Frédéric Piguet 1185, which was high horology, but had many shortcomings in power reserve, a lack of hacking seconds, and the fact that it was fairly delicate and fairly small. The movement we have here, the 4401, is big. First and foremost, it is bigger than the 1185. The 1185 was 25.6 millimeters in diameter. This is 32, so it better matches the size of a large and modern case. The watch has automatic winding with ceramic rotor bearings for low maintenance and high efficiency, a 70-hour power reserve. It has the stop seconds function, the quick set date, the flyback chronograph. The chronograph works by virtue of a column wheel, which is black polished. You can see it there for a crisp feel. It also has a vertical clutch, which, in a rarity for this type of coupling system, is actually visible. You can see it just past my fingertip. You could just barely see the pincers of the vertical clutch coming into and out of contact with the sandwich-style driving system. The vertical clutch also has no play in it, so when you start a vertical clutch, there's no jump or stagger. It doesn't have that extraneous play you find in a lateral clutch. And if you want to leave it running, that's fine. With a vertical clutch, there is no additional wear and tear. The movement is also tougher than the 1185, and it has a longer power reserve than the hybrid movement, the 3126 3840 that you found on the offshores. That movement was small in diameter and thick in profile. Here we have a higher beat rate than any of those old calibers. This is now 8 beats per second, 28,800 vibrations per hour, and it has a full balance bridge anchored on both sides with a free sprung balance for shock resistance. So this is a very tough movement. It was designed with the Royal Oak offshore in mind. Though this is a very sporty watch for a dress watch, it's still a dress watch, so it's going to be 30 meters water resistant, don't take it swimming, and the movement pivots on 40 joules. If you like this watch, reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.